All right, folks, this is a Ford F-550. It's a 2008. 6.4 diesel. This truck has not been deleted. It still has its DPF filter. It still has its EGR coolers. I've never done any of these kind of videos before, so I'm going to try to give you a step-by-step. I have a coolant leak, and we've determined by best guess that it is a water pump, which I've bought the water pump over at O'Reilly's. They have a lifetime warranty on their parts. So I'm going to be removing or disconnecting battery 1, battery 2. Battery 2, I'm actually going to completely remove it out of here so I have access. The water pump is down here. We're going to remove the shroud and then the secondary shroud under it, and then there's and the fan clutch. And I rented for 65 bucks a fan clutch removal kit at O'Reilly's, and I have it for 48 hours. And I hope I don't take that long to do this job, but I'll take that removal kit and return it and get all my money back. So I'm hoping that this is a pretty easy fix. Anyways, I've never done this before well, I've not done this before either. I had a 6.4 before, and I've removed this side of the motor several times. I'm sure I could probably get down into that valve cover, the driver's side valve cover, pretty quickly with as many times as I had to do it before. But the water pump is down here on the bottom, and so I'm going to try to get at that. You can see the alternator. Well, you can't see it probably. The alternator is down in there. Some of these videos are very helpful, so I'm going to try and see if I can put these several videos together, edit them, splice them together, and then put it up so that whoever needs help can look at it. Anyway, I'll be back in a little bit. Okay, so I've disconnected the negative terminal here. I've disconnected the positive and negative terminal here, just to give myself a little bit more room to get in here. You'll see here you have this coolant hose, and you have this positive, the battery cable that's going across here. Mine were clipped in. They're just clipped in on the shroud, so they came off pretty easy. I just used this little tool here to pop little needle nose that are bent to a little 45 to pop off these little clips right there. Where this was, you see these where they were sitting in right here. Looks like somebody's come in here before, because this shroud is actually a little cracked. Now this coolant hose actually has a connector here to the radiator, and there's a clip there, so I'm going to get my pliers and pull that off. Then I'm going to start the process of draining coolant into a 5-gallon bucket, and then we're going to get back at it. We'll update. So there was one here, there was one here, there was one right down here, which I ended up using a kind of a long extension on my 1/4-inch socket here. And then you also had your power steering reservoir. So there was 2 right here. So I just kind of had to move this hose clamps into this. So this actually sits underneath this hose. It just kind of rests, this hose rests inside that. So you have to kind of pop that out. It's just sitting there. It's not even pressurized. It's just, there's no clamping or pressure. It's just sitting there. So that's real easy. Just pull this out of the way. Now the shroud is out. So now what we're looking at is this, what I understand is this secondary shroud I have to attack. Then we have to get access to get this fan off. So we're going to figure that one out. I'm glad I got that kit because that doesn't look like anything that I have any tools for. So I believe there's supposed to be some sensors. Actually, no, when I watched this other video, the fella had some, there they are. There's a sensor right here on the back of the secondary shroud that's going to have to come out. I'm not sure if he had any sensors on the front, but anyway, we shall proceed. Okay, on the inner shroud here, you can see, where's my light? Hold on a second, let me grab my light. There we go. Right here, you can see there is a bolt there. There's one right there, and then there's going to be two, I believe, in the same location but south. Down here, you just have to move your fan blades out of the way so you can access them. I believe those are 13 millimeter. That's what I think I heard someone on another video say. So we're going to go ahead and pop those real quick, and I'll be back. Okay, so update. We are on our way to AutoZone because the O'Reilly Auto Parts toolkit for removing the fan clutch doesn't work, does it, Brendan? Nope. So 1 7/8 box wrench is what we are in hunting right now, and and my son Brendan here tells me that they have a tool that has these little pointy dealios that go into the fan clutch so that you can pull one way and pull the other way with the wrench. Anyway, update. Coming back later. Bye. Okay, update. We got these out. That was a pain. It's a special tool. Actually, it just fell here. We got this. We rented one of these from AutoZone. Very expensive rental, but as you know, you get your money back. So that helped out to get the leverage we needed in order to get this thing off. Now, however, you know, these things can't be easy, right? So now we've got most of these bolts loosened on the water pump, except that one of them stripped on us. So now we're gonna try to see if some vice grips will work. Don't judge us. We're just trying to figure it out as we go. Okay, so this has really turned out to be a pain in the butt. Now, this tool is a necessity. I mean, there's other ways to hold on to this pulley. But this tool here, I get rented at AutoZone, 80 bucks. This thing, that's a lifesaver. Anyways, let me just put this down in here and show you. Whoever had this truck before me, freaking gorilla. Like, everything seems torqued so tight. These little bolts, these 10 millimeters is what these are. I'm going to be replacing them. I went to Ace Hardware store and I bought some, but you can see this one here. See if I can get this in front of the, see that, how that's all warped and stripped. They had this thing torqued in there so tight. In fact, when I changed the oil for the first time in this truck, which are simple things that I recommend doing. I like doing my own oil changes because, you know, I've got eyeballs on what's going on. I can see it all. You see, if there's metal or whatever's going on, I can see how much oil came out of the truck. Anyway, so we managed to go ahead and get these, get the rest of those off. I'm replacing them with new bolts, just because actually several of them are kind of stripped. The way that I managed to end up ultimately getting that last one out was getting a torch and heating heating it up. What heating it up does is it expands the metal, but because it expands the metal, it's important that you don't actually heat the bolt itself, because if you heat up the bolt itself, it's going to expand the bolt, quite frankly, make it tighter. Now the bolt's going to get hot, but you really want to focus your heat around the bolt, okay? Anyway, at the end of the day, that worked. Now I got to figure out how to get this little pulley off of the water pump and then get that water pump out of there. We'll check back in a few minutes. All right. Day 2. Didn't think I'd be saying day 2 on this project, but like I said, I showed you yesterday, we ran into some issues. Doesn't seem that I have any more leaking in my coolant. What I was really concerned about, as you know, on these trucks was the EGR system, the EGR cooling system, and right down here it's behind the driver's side wheel well. It's a horizontal EGR cooler coming into this, which is your vertical EGR cooler, EGR valves. The delete kits have an elbow here. It just kind of comes boop, right into here, and it deletes all this out. You need a tuner, etc., and you have to delete the DPF. This truck, like I said, has not had that done yet. I'm still weighing the options if I'm going to do a delete or if I'm going to replace these coolers with bulletproof coolers. Anyway, fan shroud, or the fan is going to bolt back on here. I replaced these 4 bolts because the ones that were in there were stripped pretty bad. Like I said, whoever had this truck before or worked on this truck before wasn't paying much attention to torque specs or anything like that, man. They just cranked stuff down tight. So at least these are into steel, so they were just difficult to get out. Anyway, we're now going to put our fan, and so we're going to put this back in. Put a little PB blaster on the back end here on the bolts, so it looked like it had a little bit of rust in there. So I don't know, well, coolant, I suppose, but looks like I had a little bit of rust in there. So I went ahead and tried to clean that up a little bit. I wish that there was a way that this thing could come apart and you could put these things in separately, but I haven't figured that out. Here's your sensor. This is what goes up on the top. Some of you guys watching this are like, yeah, of course. Like I said, I'm not a mechanic. Definitely not a good mechanic. I'm just the only mechanic that this old boy can afford right now, and I've got some downtime with the whole coronavirus thing going on. I had to knock off early. My wife and I lead worship for our church, and so we do some live worship from our living room right now. So I had to knock off a little early last night in order to get that taken care of. Otherwise, I probably would have this done, but I also needed everything to dry out so I could confirm for sure that there was no more coolant leak. Let me show you the old water pump. When we pulled this out, this is the engine side, of course. It sets in like something like this. But when we looked at it, I mean, it's dirty, but that gasket doesn't look bad. It doesn't look, the pump doesn't look bad. Well, wait a minute, nope. It doesn't look, I don't know why it was leaking, but again, it could be one of the things we found when we got in here was that on these 3 bolts, the 3 that I replaced. Now these are obviously, I didn't replace them with a 10mm head. I went to Ace Hardware and found the best that I could. But when see those green marks? And those other bolts had green on them, so obviously somebody had been in here before, and I'm thinking that maybe, like I said, that previous person had torqued these. What I found was that those bolts, they are an M8. No, these bolts are an M8. These are an M8 1.25 metric bolt, 16 deep. But those bolts in there, they were in there tight. But when I read what I could find online about the torque specs, it was going to be anywhere from 18 to 23 foot-pounds. I went with 18 because that's what seemed to be there. I didn't find any specifics on the water pump other than in some forums, and 18 seemed to be the consensus of what everybody was saying. I replaced both of these belts. This is the main serpentine belt here. I replaced that belt. It was a little dry watered. This truck has a little less than 130 on it. And then as you can see, there's a secondary belt, which I believe is going on the AC. That secondary belt was cracking up really bad. So I'm actually glad we found this problem now instead of later. So we went ahead and replaced that belt too. It was pretty easy. There's a tensioner. There's the first tensioner's right here. That 3/8 socket, ratchet head, and then right behind it you can actually see the second. Let's see if you can see that. Oh no, see, there's the first tensioner, and then right behind it there's that second tensioner. So if you're going to take all this off, I recommend getting both belts. They're going to ask you at the auto parts store, is it a single alternator or a double alternator or dual alternator? I don't know what that means, but I found one. I just have one alternator is all I found in this truck. Okay, just put that fan back in and get back at you. One quick tip before I get back into putting this inner fan shroud back in here. There's a rubber lip. This is the lower half of the main fan of the main shroud cover that goes right over here. That is sitting right down there. So this is sitting down here waiting to get resecured. However, there is a rubber flap that kind of rides underneath here. I suppose it could ride above it. I'm not actually riding above it would. Anyway, it was underneath here, tucked underneath where the fan and the fan clutch and the shroud go right here. However, this piece right here, I believe that's a 10. I want to say that's 10mm, but this comes off. Just loosen this up. You can pull this boot off of the EGR or the intake. Pull this boot off. It also reconnects out here. Now this is a 550, so I believe that the front of this may look a little bit different. This is a huge cooler on the front, but I believe this boot goes from here up to there. Yours may be a little different on your truck. I used to have a 250. I don't recall how different it was, but this comes off. Pull that out and just kind of move it off to the side a little bit so you can get that shroud, that inner shroud inside there. We also disconnected this right here, this small little cooling coolant line right here. We disconnected that one as well. I think I'm going to have to disconnect that again in order to get this thing through. Point of correction. That is an 11. That is an 11 millimeter right there on that boot. Loosen it up a little bit there. I can slide that boot off, but 11, and you can see what I'm telling you right here. That is a tight fit. Okay, I got it dropped in. So you see I've got this boot off of here. I also took it off of the front to give it a little bit of wiggle room. I was able to get this down. Now, here's what I wanted to show you. You see that, I'm gonna touch it right here, this right here. This is coming off of the block, and down here there's another on the other side as well. Right here, right here. So these parts of the inner shroud, or the fan, this slides over there. And this is, I believe, is a 13 millimeter. Don't catch me lying, but I believe a 13 millimeter. You can also get away with a 1/2 inch socket. You're going to need an extension because it's kind of deep in there. However, these are some nuts that are going onto those studs. However, on the bottom side, what you actually have is bolts going into the block, I believe. So when I say going into the block, don't quote me on that either. They're going into something down there, but they're bolts, whereas these are nuts on the top. And I realize we have a problem. I'm going to have to probably run up to Ace and get another one of these, because I think one of them fell and I'm not sure that we can recover it. I dropped one out, and because I thought I was dealing with bolts, I didn't realize I was dealing with a nut. It dropped out, and I think my son did the same thing when he was working on the other one, and we both found the same one, so we're missing one. Little tip, Ace Hardware has these, maybe your local hardware store has the same, but they have these little metal ball here. This is real handy. But Ace Hardware has a gauges. They have a plate. It's got all these gauges. So you've got metric, standard. And so you can take a bolt, you can take a thread, or you take a bolt, you take a nut, you can take it in there. You don't know what it is, you can size it on there, and it's pretty cool. All right, be right back. Okay, we're obviously doing this back in reverse, and so now I've got to put the fan, put that big, that's 1 7/8 or 48 millimeter. Now, the part that you're going to rent, if you rent this, this is what I got from O'Reilly's. It comes with all different sizes, etc. If this, like some of the larger sizes, actually have a hole right here, a square hole for that 1/2 inch breaker bar, which I've got a great breaker bar, and that would have been perfect, but unfortunately, in this kit, this particular wrench doesn't have it. So if you can find a 1 7/8 box wrench that's about, say, 20 to 25 inches long, I would do it, because it'll save you a lot of problems. However, we have another tool that is helping us out, which is that it's actually specifically for this. We rented at AutoZone, and I'm going to be putting that in here in a minute. But that bolt right there, it's 1 7/8 inches or 48 millimeter. I say bolt, like I said, I'm not a mechanic. So I'm going to go ahead and get this stuck on there, and I'll check back in a minute. Sorry for the choppiness of this video, y'all. Like I said, this is first time I've Sorry for the choppiness of this video, folks. This is the first time I've done this. And so I've got my light on my camera now. So what I've done is, see, I put a little screwdriver right there in one of those holes. It's going to catch over here. So it's just going to help me just basically keep this, keep the pulley from spinning while I try to thread that on. But I want to make note of something for you, because it just feel like a dummy. That is reverse thread. So I was trying to go clockwise, and if you've ever tried to put a nut onto a bolt and you keep missing the thread and it's frustrating, well, try to do it with your arm squeezed in here and carrying this heavy fan. So once I understood that it was going the opposite direction, it became a whole lot easier. You can actually just kind of get it situated and spin the fan and to rotate that bolt on there. I'm going to do that to get it on far enough, and then I'll end up using that 48 millimeter. This is a sensor plug that goes here on the top of the fan shroud. And as you can tell, it is missing the clip. So I don't know how much one of these cost, but this thing was extremely brittle, so when we tried to take it out, it almost disintegrated. So we managed to get it disconnected. We're going to put it back together, maybe try to use some electrical tape, but I'm actually either going to head up to, depending on what it costs, over at the dealership for that little wiring harness. I'm either going to go there, maybe run down to the salvage yard and grab one off of a truck down there. Anyway, that fan clutch is on. It's just awkward. It's not difficult, it's just awkward. So now we're going to put these boots back on here, secure those bolts, put in the top shroud, and reconnect make sure all our hoses are connected. And in the meantime, I found this, I'm not original to this truck, so it's here. You can see my, I'm gonna have to replace where my washer fluid is, but I found the other part of the hose. I'm gonna have to fish it out, but it is down in there, guys. So I'll fish that out, and I'll be right back. All right, so on my way to return this AutoZone tool for removing the water fan, or the fan clutch, and to O'Reilly to return their fan clutch removal tool. Combination of both of them worked. So and I left the house and I forgot the nut. I had to go back and get it. So now on my way. So I'm gonna say this about this whole process. It's a pain in the butt, but at the end of the day, I've learned a little bit more. I've got eyeballs and hands on some important parts of the truck. While I'm at AutoZone, I'm going to pick up the filler cap, the cap that goes on the pressurized tank for the coolant. I watched a video last night, and man, I wish I've watched so many different videos. I wish I could remember. I'd tag it here, but watched a video last night. The guy talks about a $5 part. In fact, if you search for $5 part and the Powerstroke, you'll probably find it. But essentially, I'll wrap it all up in a nutshell. The cap that goes on top of that pressurized reservoir is apparently the spring. My wife called me, so I don't know where that video left off, but the gentleman talks about a $5 part over at Advanced Auto Parts. He likes Advanced Auto Parts. I'm I actually like Advanced Auto Parts because there's a fella at our local one that knows everything. It's I can sit down and just pick his brain about what I need, and he'll either sell me something or not, but he'll at least tell me what I need to know. So AutoZone's close, so that's where I'm going to head today to pick up the cap that goes on the pressurized reservoir for the coolant. He said that particular piece right there, you've got to have a pressurized cap. It's got to hold pressure, because if it doesn't, you're going to be boiling your coolant before the fan even kicks on. He said about 98% of the trucks that come into his shop have they got blown head gaskets and they've got a bad cap. So the science, the math behind it makes really good sense. So I'm going to pick one of those up while I'm out. Just a little bit of preventative maintenance. Anyway, gonna head brown, do these things. I'll check back at you and hopefully get this thing fired up. I've got to somehow flush. I think I'm gonna try to flush the coolant out of this truck. I've not done that before, so I might try that. I'm not certain about it, but talk to you in a bit. All right, here I am at the local Ace, and this is the gauge plate I was telling you about. You got your standard and you got your metrics. So try this M8, 1 point, threads on perfectly, M8 1.25. So let's see here. Go. You see, this one has the M8, so you got a flange nut. That's 1.25 pitch. These guys right here. Look at that. Beautiful. I love my local Ace. Sucker's 95 cents. I remember your local Ace Hardware has this. I don't know if Home Depot or Lowe's or these others do, but this is extremely helpful. I can't tell you how many times I've used that. All right, so I'm almost back from the hardware. Well, crud, I forgot to go to AutoZone and O'Reilly's to drop those parts off. Let me actually swing around and go do that, because I want to get that money back in my account. But if you're watching this video and you've watched it up to this point, either you're looking to see what a nut this guy is that's trying to do this and screwing up along the way, but you know what, that's most of us if we have these and we're not mechanics, and we're going to try to save a little bit of money. You get some experience and you save a lot of money, because labor on these things is expensive. The dealership quoted me almost $1,000 to replace the water pump. The water pump's 125 bucks. That's a lot of labor, guys. So when you approach these things, trying to do it yourself, be your own mechanic, turn your own wrench, you just got to come at it with a sense of confidence that you can knock it out. You're going to run into some issues, but at the end of the day, you're going to learn a lot. You're going to know a lot more about the truck you're driving. You're going to save a good bit of money. But if you come at it with a can-do attitude, like I can do it, we can get this done, you'll be able to make it through it, just like anything else. That confidence of being able to knock it out is going to push you over the frustration and into success. Instead of being frustrated about these hardships you might run into, you're going to end up coming up with solutions. My son watches diesel shows and truck shows all the time. He's taken apart 3 old trucks. He likes those old trucks, the F-150s, you know, 95 to 98, 99. Well, I don't think he's had a 99 yet. But he's got no budget, so he's had to learn how to do a lot of these things himself, so he's been a real big help in this process as well. 2 heads are better than 1, and he's helpful to have around on these things, so we can put these things together. And when we run into, he's never worked on a diesel truck before. I worked on my last one. In my opinion, doing it yourself is, especially with these diesels, is a great idea, unless you've got the budget and you've got a connection to a local diesel shop. Honestly, these things cost so much money to repair, I wouldn't just go send it into a local diesel shop. Some of these shops are, well, there's one local guy that if I had to go to, I'd go to him. He's got a good reputation. He's a step up from a shade tree mechanic. Runs a pretty good shop, but he's an honest guy. There's another local diesel shop here in Spring, Texas that I took the first truck I had. I bought it not knowing anything. I think that when I came in there talking about spark plugs, because I had a misfire, which, you know, spark plugs, you know, cheap. Fuel injectors and rocker arms and all these different things that can go bad on these diesel trucks. Oh my gosh, those are not cheap at all. But when I came in talking about spark plugs, I think they saw dollar signs on me. So $2,000 later, they hadn't done crap to the truck. In fact, I have a pretty good feeling that they cut a line coming off the oil filler down to the oil cooler. Oil cooler crapped out on me probably about a month after I took it to those guys. I didn't drive it much either because I spent all this time trying to take care of a check engine light, replace some rocker arms, injectors, did those things. Then when I took the engine apart on the other side where the oil filler is, I saw that tube and it was cut. Didn't break, didn't snap, it was cut. When I pulled apart the valve cover, I found ball bearings down in there, which there's no way those ball bearings were rolling around inside that valve cover before I took it to those guys. So beware. It just costs so much money to repair these things. You don't want to send it to someone who's going to sit there and hunt and peck around, and you'll be out thousands and thousands of dollars. And if you're like me, you're trying to feed a family, either running your own small business or you're working hard for somebody else. Either way, we don't have thousands and thousands of dollars just to throw away at somebody who's guessing. Anyway, here I am at AutoZone, going to return my part. I'll be back. All right, we're getting ready to put a bow on it. Now, what I told you, I wanted to show this to you about this video I watched earlier. So I went to AutoZone and I got a new cap. You can see the difference here. This is the stock cap. If you've not done anything, this is what yours looks like. You see a little spring in there. Well, what the gentleman was explaining was that spring over time will wear out. It's a small spring. It's a failing point apparently on these caps. This is the new cap. from AutoZone, and it's got a much bigger spring inside there. Anyway, $6.99. Just put it on there for now, but so I don't lose it. But anyway, gonna be taking it off in 2 seconds because I gotta put new coolant in it. 6.4 2008 motor. Holds 7.9. Holds 7.9 gallons. So my son left his lights on. Oh, he figured it out. You got it, Brendan? Red on positive, Brendan. So anyway, left his lights on his truck last night apparently. So, be right back. Okay, now just put this shroud here back in, and these are all 8mm right here. 1, 2, 3, and there's one down there, but in my case it's broken off. Power steering reservoir has a little clip that slides. It's on the back of here, and it just slides into a little slot on this deal. And then again, this hose, or the one on top, I'm sorry. Just see how it's resting right in there. So make sure you get that back in. On the other side, there, we got this one done on top, but then you just got this one. It looks like it's a little. I need to loosen this up a little bit here so I can make it. I can kind of finagle that one down there a little bit. But here I've got 2 extensions, and don't ask me how long they are. I'm gonna guess maybe like 5 inches and maybe or 3 and 6 maybe, to get down to that spot down there. Another 8mm. All right, we're up and running. I've got about, I put about 4.5 gallons of coolant into the truck. Tried to bleed it. They said it holds 7, though I can assume it holds 8. So I've already got my other coolant mixed up, ready to go, maybe 3.5 gallons, but nowhere to put it yet. I have to see how this thing works, because I'm assuming that when I drain it, because this thing has so many areas that there's very big possibility that not all the coolant came out. Here's that new cap I was telling you about. It's a cold fill. Of course, they're going down and just put basically about a half gallon up to about here. We'll see what happens here. I'm going to take it for a ride. And then, looks like I'm going to be taking my daughter to Chick-fil-A. So, hopefully I'll be able to put this video together and bring it up to you. Alright, we're just going to wrap it up here. I went ahead and I've got to let this whole thing cool down. I filled it up with a cold fill. Make sure I got enough in there. Got some work to do tomorrow, and so after I'm done with all my running around and my jobs on the schedule, I will just kind of be checking that through the day. Make sure that's all good. I'm going to end up coming back in here sooner than later and probably doing a complete flush. something I've got to learn a little bit more about, but I'm going to try to do a complete flush on this to make sure the whole system is completely cleaned out. And of course going to be doing a little bit more research on the EGR and the DPF situation. So, like I said before, sounds good, and it is big truck, F550, 12-foot flatbed. My sons. Anyway, thanks for taking the ride. I know it's been about 45 or so minutes of this video, and hope it was been helpful. Like it, do whatever. I mean, don't hate on me. It's a 6.4. It's what I've got. I've been blessed with it, and it's running well. Not had any problems really, and I'm looking into the EGR stuff. But guys, if you're trying to do it yourself, you can do it. Just be confident about it and find the solutions and work your way through it. God bless y'all, and have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the day.